In this tutorial, we'll explore how to create conceptual art by bringing together unique elements into a cohesive composition. This practice combines structure and creativity, encouraging problem solving and meaningful engagement. By focusing on how different parts interact and harmonize, you'll not only create a piece, but also build confidence as you see it all come together. This process also reflects a deeper idea: how we integrate our individuality with a larger community. Just as each piece of art maintains its unique qualities while contributing to the whole, we strive to stay true to ourselves while connecting with others. This balance of autonomy and belonging is central to both art and life. Let's dive in and see how this practice can inspire both your creativity and perspective. Today's activity is about integrating unique qualities with the whole. So the supplies you need for this experiment are scissors, a pencil or a pen, and a piece of stock paper, which is optional, really. We don't have to have a really stiff piece of paper, but I find it helpful because it completely covers the paper without there being anything that is visible through. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my stock paper and cut it into 4 pieces. They don't have to be super big, but large enough to take up enough space to cover up part of your drawing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that I have my pieces of paper, I can put those to the side. And I will take another piece of blank paper and use this for sketching some ideas. In this activity, we're thinking about not necessarily opposite, but components that are very different. So we're just going to take about 10 minutes to sketch out a variety of ideas, whatever comes to us, maybe even setting a timer for 10 minutes. Okay, ready? Go. Not really too specific about what I'm drawing here, just kind of using my intuitive expression to make interesting shapes and drawings, and trying to demonstrate variety. You'll find that some of the same images will return to you over and over, and one of the benefits of this kind of practice is escaping those ruts we might get into with our habitual pattern making. And I think 10 minutes is a good amount of time to exhaust that repetitive nature and have to think out of the box for solutions. Okay, so I'm going to speed up the video now. Okay, beautiful. So after 10 minutes has passed of this kind of free range drawing, you'll start to notice some things about yourself and about what your hand is doing. And some trends might start to emerge. We always want to be thinking during this time, what is most interesting to us right now? What inspires us to continue creating? For me, I found myself captivated by the hard lines and the soft lines. So something that's a little bit more strict, or not necessarily strict, but edgy, and something more fluid. So I think that I'm going to focus on these two components. You might go with, say, circles and squares or lines and shapes. They don't necessarily have to be opposite, but making them different is really healthy for this practice, especially, or not especially, but also if you're playing with color, then you can use complementary colors, which are opposite colors on the color wheel. So I've chosen these hard edges with the soft edges. I'm going to take another piece of scrap paper for the next part of this practice. So for the next part of the practice, we are going to spend maybe 2 minutes with each type of opposite line, or each type of pattern making that we chose. So for me, I'm going to spend 2 minutes creating only hard edges and 2 minutes creating different soft edges. Okay, so from here, I'll speed up the video, and please create on your own or pause the video to complete this portion of the study. So there's a rule here that with my brainstorming, I am only using hard edges. But other than that, I can do whatever my heart desires to kind of come up with unique shapes that are semi-intuitive outside of my one rule. And really, it's kind of just a warm-up for our next activity. Just getting in the habit of enjoying and appreciating the unique identity of this type of pattern. And not to say it's a visual pattern, but an imprint. Much like as human beings, we all have a unique imprint. So it can feel very different moving from one way of being to another. We might include similar components, like, for example, shapes within shapes, which are carrying across here. But my mind is on a completely different vibrational track, creating these curvy figures. And I feel like this is one of the benefits of practicing artwork, because we can integrate disparate elements through art. It doesn't have to be so complicated or tricky or even personal. Maybe when we look back later, we can say, oh, that was very personal. But in the moment, we have a bit of freedom to just express. And right now, our shapes are separated on our paper, very logical and different. And there we go. For the next portion of our activity, or maybe the main portion of our activity, we'll bring back our 4 pieces of heavy stock paper. And we also need a single piece of drawing paper and the tool that we're going to be using for our final art piece. Before we had these separate elements that were in two different parts of the paper, now we're going to work to focus on their individual expression while harmonizing them with the rest of our piece of artwork. So starting with one side or the other, I'll start with some curvy shapes, curvy experience. We're going to block off a small section of paper. There's no specific size, just whatever feels good to you, and create only within that box. We're not really brainstorming anymore, so this is something that we can really take our time with. Thinking about the essence of my curvy lines, the embodiment. And really, there's no good stopping point except for what's intuitive to you. I would say as a general rule for this entire activity is to stop when you think that could be a complete piece of art on its own. I'm pretty happy with this. So now I'll be moving to a different piece of the paper. Really, it doesn't matter where it is. Again, this is an abstract piece of artwork, so there's no final destination except for the boundaries and comfortable guardrails that you place for yourself to help you to grow. So the only kind of helpful practice right now is to make sure that your other piece of artwork is covered so you can focus on this new piece. For me, I'm going to kind of make them about the same size so that they each have an equal say in my composition. And now I'm going to move forward with some hard edges. I'd like to challenge myself here. I'm not interested in making the exact same shape as I did before, using soft edges. And besides that, variety makes life interesting. Kind of interesting little abstract piece here. Beautiful. Okay, so when I take off these 4 pieces of cover paper, I have 2 very separate and distinct pieces of drawing. And I'm going to work now to integrate them together. The way I'm going to do that is by adding the elements from one to both, and then vice versa, adding the elements from the other to both, back and forth until I have a complete composition. So put those little papers to the side just for now. We'll come back to them. And I'm going to start with my curvy piece. A good principle would be to spend about 60 seconds on each edition. We don't want to overwork it since we are going to be bringing this together using several iterations of this process. Always I'm thinking of the bigger picture and how I can create a complete composition from these 2 separate pieces. This might be your style of artwork. I know that it's not that common, but it has been popularized by Helma af Klint as well as Kandinsky. So it's very line work oriented, but if you're using color or paint, you can also do this practice and still get the same psychological benefits. I really appreciate experiencing the ways that the different elements can complement and harmonize each other. So I've worked the curve over here and over here. Now I'll move into some hard-edged line work on both sides. Again, really taking my time here. One way that we can add dimensionality to these types of artworks is to include weight to our lines. Oh, I drew a almost straight, almost curvy line. I don't know if that's allowed, but maybe the two had a baby. It's definitely allowed. And I think it represents evolution, natural human evolution as we grow and come together and integrate into a beautiful picture that's only made possible through these unique and beautiful qualities that we each bring. So I'm feeling like I'm getting closer to a artwork that would make me happy and feel complete. But let's say I do feel stuck here and maybe I want to make the experience more interesting. I can go back in with my 4 pieces of paper and do exactly the same thing I've been doing, except I'm isolating again. So I think I just did curvy. I'm gonna come in with my square pieces. And this is always a fun practice, no matter kind of whether you're doing this activity or another one. But the isolation of elements and then focusing on the quality of that isolated part can really make a difference in your final piece. So I'm really gonna go strong into those hard edges here until I'm super happy with the composition within this single element. Have a lot of self-referential elements in my work here, so you'll notice I'm very interested in having these pieces strive towards each other and creating a bit of tension and connection without having to become completely one. Okay, so that was the hard edge over here. I think this could use a little bit more movement, so I'll bring my paper to this top portion and do the same. I think some artists are interested in creating maybe figures that either look like people or animals. I personally stay away from that. It's very easy to do, and if it happens, it's not the end of the world for me, but always pay attention to the idea that something might look like arms or an eye, especially when you have this shape where we have circles within circles and obviously this blacked out piece. There's a really good chance that when I lift up my paper, it will look like an eye, and that's quite all right, but I will work intentionally to try to balance that out because I'm not necessarily interested in evoking a humanized element outside of the conceptual quality of my artwork. So it's just something to be mindful of if you create this style. Let's see here. It kind of could look like a shape, an eye of some sort. So I can work to balance that out, create some fluidity. For example, I wouldn't want to create another dark circle or square here. It would look like two eyes then. Let me see what I can do with this. Always kind of remaining mindful. I'll be working through curves first, and then I'll be kind of interchanging that with these hard edges. So from here, I'll go ahead and fast forward the video. It's complacent to make beautiful things in the world. It's one of the most powerful acts of intention that you can possibly take. To decide to withdraw from a fight, a yes or a no, and to find integration in your work. To take the time, the effort, the quality of attention to cultivate beauty and activate one of the most fundamental but powerful human gifts: creativity, higher thought. What a brave act that is. Just putting my final touches on, feeling very close and confident that this is a complete abstract piece. Conceptual. It's one of those things that you just can't explain. You don't know how you know when it's done, but you know that you have uploaded something to the matrix, a visual artifact. And that's enough. No need to work too hard, to overwork. And yet nothing is left undone. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here with me, and I hope you appreciated your practice today. Let me know how it went for you, or if you have any other thoughts or ideas. Ciao for now.